My friends, I think it's about time we went over a video on guitar-based effects and how to use them properly. Because we can all turn on a guitar pedal, right? But when are we supposed to be using these things, and when are we going to get the most out of the effects? And that's what I want to focus on in this video. You know, the real nitty gritty behind when you're supposed to use something, an overdrive over a distortion, or a fuzz pedal, or when you're supposed to be using a chorus, that kind of thing. I think this video is going to be really useful because a lot of the times in a mix, we just go for a sound that we're familiar with, that we like, but it might not necessarily be called for with the composition of the song. So hopefully by the end of this episode, you'll be a little bit more familiar and understand when to use these guitar-based effects. So what's happening, fam? Miami here with JST, and one of the biggest perks that I have from this job, besides being able to work with Sturgis and whatnot, is that I get to work with other people too. People like Howard Benson, who's a producer, people like Jeff Loomis, who's a guitarist, you know. And even though all of those three people I mentioned do different things, mixer, producer, and guitarist, they all have a similar train of thought when it comes to making a song work. Everything has to have a purpose in a song. And every element that you have in a song that doesn't have a purpose is just one more reason that the mix or the song can't breathe. And every time that you grab an effect, it should be to showcase that part that you're using it on. Other than that, you're just distracting from everything else that's happening. So first off, we're gonna start with the chorus effect. When using a chorus or widening effect on your guitar, you're typically trying to draw attention to and emphasize a riff or a chord, right? The reason I ask is because I often see people using chorus in really crowded mixes where it doesn't really have a chance to shine. I never really understood the point of that. I always think that chorus works best when it's by itself on a riff, or when it's being played with a single vocal, or when it's drums and bass and that guitar with the chorus effect. When you have multi-layered vocal parts really panned out, they start competing for space with the chorus part of that guitar. And when you do the same thing and have rhythm guitars, it kind of just pushes the chorus into the middle again, and it defeats the purpose. But let's just dial in a chorus tone and hear how it should be versus how it shouldn't be. And that's just one way of attacking it. But let's say that you have the sound in your head and you have rhythm guitars and you still want to have that chorus going off. If you're doing that and the chorus is right down the middle on that lead, one thing you can do is add some widening to it to make it even more apparent. So take a listen to this and see what I mean. We're gonna widen it so we can still feel that the chorus is doing what it's supposed to do in a crowded space. So there you go, a couple of thoughts and mindsets to help when trying to use chorus as an effect. And if you need that widening effect to save you in a pinch, just go to the description below and download your free trial of JST Maximizer today or tomorrow, you know, as long as you eventually try it. I'm sure you're gonna fall in love with it. But let's get on to the next effect I wanna talk about. And that effect is an Octaver. And all this really does is add a pitched octave above or below. Great for leads to add some flavor, but we're gonna do this manually. You know, this effect works really well when you're working on a song that doesn't have harmonies in it. It just has a lot of open space and it gives you a place to add a layer without having to do too much, right? So we're gonna take this guitar track, we're going to duplicate it, gonna pitch one of them up a full octave, and then we're gonna take a copy of the amp sim with the same effects and put it on it, and then we're gonna balance it to taste and see what we come up with. And when there's not a lot going on in a song and you need to make a guitar part shine, whether it be just a riff or a solo, this is a quick fix for that. So let's take a listen to how we would do this in a song. And now that we have that under our belt, we can talk about possibly the most used guitar effect besides reverb, distortion. So the typical go-tos for this are going to be fuzz, overdrive, and distortion, right? These all come in a million different pedals. We've seen them from here to there. You step into Guitar Center and it's literally riddled with the things, right? Just so you guys know, I have a video that's describing the technical differences between these, but what I'm talking about in this vid is a more use case scenario, kind of like when you would want to pick one over the other. So we're going to try and keep this really short and sweet. An overdrive pedal is great for using on mid-gain guitars, especially in like softer rock. And the thing about an overdrive is it's great as a boost. And when you're using a distortion pedal, it's typically in heavier music, you know, in rock, heavy metal, because we take a really distorted sound and we just want to amplify that and push that even more. We want it dirtier. And when it comes to a fuzz pedal, I mean, that basically just turns audio signal into a square wave, and it does its own kind of distortion with that, a bit different than an overdrive, of course, and distortion. And I would say fuzz pedals are more popular in like psychedelic bands, lo-fi bands, jazz, and blues. Those would be like the first places I'd go to for using that kind of pedal. But let's take a listen to all three of these pedals on the same source and then try to pick which sounded the best to our ears for that specific example. In this example, the distortion pedal stuck out the most to me. I don't think the boost was giving me exactly what I wanted. And you can get creative with the uses here, but the type of pedals typically do go with the genre. Softer rock bands, like I said, often choose an overdrive for boost over a distortion pedal. And heavy metal and rock bands are definitely gonna go grab a tube screamer because that's just what we do, man. But let's go on to our next effect, guitar chops and stutters. This is def on the production side of things, but a guitar chop or stutter effect is a useful tool in production and can easily be overdone if you're not too careful. The most appropriate time that I think you should use a guitar stutter or chop is typically in breakdowns and heavier music. That's when you're gonna hear it the most. But you will also catch it in the occasional intro of a song, especially ones that are cinematic. So to do this, you're essentially gonna find a section of a guitar and a part of a song that needs a little something extra and chop it by 1/8, 16ths, or 30 seconds depending on your tempo. Sometimes it's a combination of all of those. So let's take a listen to a guitar part before it was chopped up and then after. But not only that, let's show you exactly how we got there. You know, let's show you the process of chopping that up, just in case you haven't done it before yourself. See, that wasn't so hard, right? All I needed was a couple moves to take that part to the next level. And speaking of next level, I want to get into another effect that we all know and love, but I want to talk about it from a point that I don't usually hear people speaking about it, and that's delay. I want to start this off talking about dotted delays because I think that that's a really confusing one. So take it this way. If you were playing a straight rhythm with a dotted delay, the offset of a dotted delay is going to create a counterpoint. But this isn't something that you can just throw on any guitar lead, because if it's not following a specific syncopation, then it's going to start sounding jumbly. Now, it works great on chords and arpeggios, but once you start doing things with odd rhythms or things that have you going in and out of scales and keys, it starts getting weird because those counterpoints that have the delay never stack up and sound right. Here's an example of when a dotted delay sounds right versus when it doesn't. And when we talk about quarter note and eighth delays, I know some people struggle with finding the right one. I always like to go with the head bob test. If there's like a slow groove to the song and you feel your head bobbing a little slower, most of the time you're gonna wanna go with a quarter note delay. But if you feel yourself even in more like a magenti rhythm going, most of the time it's gonna be an eighth or a 16th. That's just out the gate, normal. It's not just about picking numbers, it's really going with the feeling of the song. So let's go over all the things that we just talked about. Chorus, octavers, distortion, guitar stutters, and delays. These are the most common used guitar effects that I've come across, and I think there's a time and a place for all of them. Picking the right effect to fit the vibe and mood of a song is always gonna get the most out of it. And I hope that this cleared up things for anyone that's ever been confused about it from a production standpoint. Are these the way that you typically use these effects? Did I say something that's gonna make you change the way that you would typically approach using one of them? Leave it in the comments below and I will chat with you fine people like I always do. If you're an engineer on the come up, give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, you only have to do it one time, and tap that bell for notifications so when a video drops, you know the location. Until next time, catch you guys later.